Hello, I'm Anna, 30, living in San Antonio, Texas. Although I'm planning a move soon, life's been quite the roller coaster recently. I'm coming out of a challenging marriage that lasted just over a year, an ordeal that led me to rely on my father and the authorities for a safe escape. I often think about whether I could have prevented it with more caution. I've always been quiet and introverted, much more comfortable behind a computer screen than in social situations. Socializing has never come easily to me, and the thought of strangers approaching fills me with anxiety. The death of my mom, due to heart problems when I was 7, marked a turning point in my life. My dad, a Navy SEAL since he was 25, raised me on his own. His job kept him away frequently, but he always kept in touch through letters and phone calls. After Mom passed, Dad came home to find me devastated. I remember how hard he tried to comfort me, promising everything would be alright now that he was back. Even then, I could sense his grief. It was the first time I saw him so vulnerable. A few months later, I had an accident at the playground, and Dad took time off work to stay with me. He left me with my grandmother, asking her to teach me how to bake my favorite treats. I promised I'd learn and eagerly awaited his return to show him what I had made. He reassured me, saying, "I'll be back in about 7 months. Sweetheart, take care of yourself." He kept his promise, sending me gifts and mementos from his travels, each one carrying a story that kept him close despite the distance. I spent most of my childhood indoors with my grandmother, preferring quiet over playing with other children. When Dad decided it was time to move back to our family home, I struggled with the transition. College felt overwhelming, and socializing drained me, but online, I thrived. The digital world became my escape, where I could explore stories and interact with others on my own terms. That's when I met Brian, a streamer. We started off as text buddies and eventually moved to video calls, each of us hiding behind masks, mine a Batman mask, his a scarf and beanie. "Hey Anna, it's great to finally see you," he said warmly. "Hi, Brian. Nice to meet you, virtually," I replied nervously. "Likewise. How's it going today? Talk to a lot of people?" he asked with a chuckle. "I'm okay, just a bit nervous," I confessed. "That's perfectly normal. Don't worry, I'm probably just as awkward as you are," he reassured me, helping me relax. Our conversation flowed naturally from there. Our shared awkwardness made it easier to connect. "Tell me more about yourself, Brian. How did you get into this online world?" I asked, and so began a bond based on mutual understanding. I've always been curious about meeting new people and understanding different perspectives, I explained, but since I spend so much time at home, the online community became the perfect place for me to explore that. "Same here," Brian said. "I'm introverted, so face-to-face interactions are difficult for me. The online world feels safer. I can express myself better here." His perspective was comforting. As we continued talking and sharing life stories, I began to feel more at ease. "You make this so easy," I admitted. "It's mutual. You're easy to talk to." "I'm glad we met," he replied. "If you ever want to chat, I'm usually around, probably playing Mario." "Oh, you're into gaming?" "Not really," I laughed. "I spend most of my time blogging and browsing Reddit. There's so much to learn from the stories people share there." "True," Brian agreed. "Sometimes reading about other people's lives makes mine seem ordinary." Honestly, I trust my online friends more than the ones I know in person. What I love about online connections is the freedom. You can engage or step back whenever you need to, he added. His words stayed with me. Online connections felt special because they didn't carry the weight of traditional social expectations. As our conversations grew deeper, Brian and I formed a true friendship. I couldn't help but wonder where this digital journey might lead. The online world had shaped me, and I knew the lessons I learned would stay with me. But my dad, ever cautious and traditional, would likely disapprove of me forming friendships with people I've never met in person. During his last visit, he gave me one of his familiar lectures over dinner. "So, how's school going, Dove?" he asked gently. "Dad, I've graduated," I replied, a bit saddened. "But you wouldn't know that. You didn't make it." His expression softened. "Oh, Anna," he said regretfully, "I know I missed it. I'm sorry, I was caught up with work, but please know I regret not being there." Despite our differences, our bond remained strong, a mix of love, concern, and sometimes challenging understanding. "I even sent you an email about your birthday tomorrow. My pumpkin's big day." "Huh, Dad, stop with the old nicknames. I'm not 9 anymore," I protested, embarrassed. "You'll always be my little dove." He smiled softly. "But let's talk about what's next for you. Have you thought about work?" "I'm not sure yet," I admitted. "What do you mean, not sure?" What are your friends doing? He asked, concern evident. I don't have any friends, I confessed, feeling more isolated. He looked shocked, then sighed. Listen, Anna, I didn't send you to live with your mom's family to avoid the world. There's so much out there. You're missing out by staying inside. That's just it. Dad, I don't know how to meet people. I mean, I have friends, but they're all online. I explained. Online? Anna, that's not the best way to make friends, he said, clearly worried. Trying to help, he suggested. Let's go out shopping today, just the two of us. It's been ages since we've done that. I'm not sure I'm ready for that. I hesitated, feeling overwhelmed. Come on, Anna, you need to try. Staying cooped up isn't good for you. Ever since your mom passed, you've changed. Why bring mom into this? What are you trying to say? I snapped, frustration rising. I'm not trying to upset you, sweetheart. I'm just saying we need to move forward despite our loss. But his words only made me more upset. I slammed my hand on the table, stood up, and left my meal unfinished. Anna, don't treat your father like that. I'm just trying to help, he pleaded, but I was too upset to listen. You don't understand me at all, so don't even try, I retorted, emotions boiling over. Seeking comfort, I turned to my online world, where Brian had always been a kind and understanding presence. His words brought me peace amid my emotional turmoil. In the quiet of my room, with the glow of the computer screen, I found solace. As the world continued around me, I found refuge in my digital sanctuary, where I could be myself without the pressure of face-to-face interactions. But my dad's worries lingered. Since I told him how much of my life revolved around the online world, he's been pushing me to step out of my virtual bubble. Despite my resistance, I could sense his hope that I'd reconnect with the world beyond the screen. I knew my father would never understand. He thought that by staying in my room all the time, I was stifling my growth. He urged me to step outside my comfort zone, but it only made my anxiety worse. Searching for some clarity, I turned to Brian. Hey Anna, want to hang out sometime? Brian asked one evening. We were both introverted, and the idea of finding a quiet, peaceful spot away from crowds sounded appealing. I know a place, he added casually, almost nonchalantly. I was caught off guard. I don't know. It seems a bit sudden. Let me think it over, I responded hesitantly. Take your time, no pressure, Brian reassured me. When you're ready, just let me know. Here's my address. You're always welcome. Why are you so kind to me? I'm practically a stranger, I asked, puzzled by his gentleness. Because I like you, he replied plainly, his sincerity having a profound effect on me. I want to get to know you. Whenever you're ready, I'll be here. His words stayed with me, and after a while, I decided to meet him. It felt like a big leap for me. The drive wasn't long, only 35 minutes, but the closer I got, the more nervous I became. I took a deep breath and knocked on his door. When it opened, Brian greeted me with a warm smile, and all my anxieties seemed to melt away. His place wasn't grand, but it had a cozy feel that made me comfortable. Welcome to my home, he said, using a gaming reference I didn't completely understand. I may not get all the references, but thanks, I said with a smile. Your place is nice. Do you live here by yourself? No, my mom lives downstairs. I have the upstairs to myself, he explained, giving me a quick tour of the space. It felt natural, and I found myself growing more fond of him. We spent hours talking, and as the evening drew near, Brian suggested a walk in the nearby park. The idea was comforting, and as we walked together, I felt our online connection turning into something real. During our walk, I shared that I hadn't celebrated my birthday due to a fallout with my dad. Brian was understanding, expressing hope that time would heal the rift. As time passed, however, I began to notice something unsettling in Brian. His affection shifted into something more possessive. He insisted on constant communication, and whenever I interacted with others, he grew upset. What began as protectiveness started to feel like control. Things were made worse by his mother's disapproval of our relationship. It stung, especially since she had never even met me. Her close connection with Brian made me feel like an outsider. What confused me further was her contradictory behavior. She seemed to want Brian to marry, yet she didn't approve of me. It was a difficult situation to navigate. Before long, I found myself trapped in a secret marriage with Brian. He manipulated me into believing that my father's rejection justified it, portraying himself as the only one who truly cared. I accepted it silently, hoping that the marriage would offer me comfort. Instead, it turned into a trap. Months passed, and Brian's mother's cruelty escalated. She criticized everything, from my cooking to my cleaning, and her harsh words made me feel small and unwanted. Brian, lost in his own world, remained distant, leaving me to endure her attacks alone. The isolation I felt grew deeper. I began to regret pushing my father away, especially since I now had no one else. One day, already weakened by illness, I tried to rest, only to be rudely awakened by a splash of cold water. Brian's mother stood over me, fury in her eyes. "Why are you resting instead of working?" she screamed, slapping me hard. I froze, overwhelmed by the shock. Something inside me snapped. "I'm done doing anything for you or your son," I shouted, my voice trembling. "I've had enough." At that moment, I realized I deserved better. I had to break free, no matter what. As I turned to leave, a sharp pain shot through the back of my head, and I blacked out. When I regained consciousness, I found myself in a dimly lit room, my head throbbing. The confusion and pain overwhelmed me as I tried to stand, only to collapse. I crawled toward the faint sounds of movement and soon found a small metal door. Using it for support, I managed to stand just as the latch clicked open. To my horror, Brian stood in the doorway, his grin cruel and malicious. "Is my wife afraid of the dark?" he taunted, clearly enjoying my fear. I begged him to let me go, pleading that this had gone too far, but he just laughed, telling me I was being punished for defying his mother. He planned to keep me locked away, cutting me off from everything. The reality of my situation hit me like a ton of bricks. Alone, isolated, and trapped. But then I remembered my phone. It was cracked, but still usable enough to give me a slim chance to reach out. With trembling hands, I dialed my dad's number, praying he would hear me. Tears blurred my vision as I explained everything, hoping he would come to my rescue. 3 agonizing days passed before I finally heard the sound of a car outside. My heart soared, and I strained to hear footsteps. The door swung open, and there stood my dad, a beacon of strength and reassurance. Relief flooded through me, and with it, disbelief. He had come, bringing the police with him. Brian was arrested, and his excuses were rendered meaningless in the face of the truth. As we left the basement, my dad's words echoed in my mind. "You have no idea what awaits you," he said, his voice laced with anger and disappointment. The truth had been exposed. Brian's actions couldn't be hidden, and as we walked away from the darkness, I felt a newfound sense of courage. This ordeal had been harrowing, but it had revealed my strength and my father's unwavering support. With his help, I would rebuild my life, leaving behind the shadows of the past. Moving to Jacksonville with my dad marked the beginning of a fresh start. The painful chapter was over, but the lessons it taught me would stay with me forever. It was time to heal, to reclaim my voice, and to never let anyone silence me again. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay stunned.